Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I'm the mother of tarot. My name is Megan, and I'm really excited. We're doing a collaboration video today with my friend Julien. And really quick, I'm just going to go over what this video is about, and then I'm going to let him introduce himself. So we have a lot of really powerful spiritual topics we want to talk about. We want to talk about toxic positivity. That's been a thing I've been seeing everywhere lately. We're going to talk about the importance of integrating the fun side of spirituality. We're also going to talk about setting boundaries because that's been something really prevalent in my life lately. We're going to talk about how you know you're on the right path. We're also going to talk about on social media, people are really being rewarded for their vulnerability. We're also going to talk about feeling emotions, trusting them, and what to do to integrate the new energies coming up. We're going to talk about 5D as well, the difference between like 5D, 4D, 3D. And so, yeah, welcome. Thank you, Julien, for joining me. I'm really excited. We just started connecting a couple weeks ago, so we're new friends, and I really love his energy. So go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me, Megan. It's great that we connected a few weeks ago. We've spoken a couple of times since. So I'm just started out pretty much with my business to an extent. I've been working sort of a 9-to-5 job for 10 years or so, but I've got to the point where my soul is wanting to explore, which is to say that I want to go on my own journey. So the way that Megan and I connected was that I feel that we're both, Megan is probably a good couple of years ahead of where I'd like to be. But Megan's vibe is very similar to my own. So it's great to be here, and thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I don't know. I see us as equals. I think the only difference is, that I see is I'm a little more open on my social media. I'm a little more, I put my, my voice out, but I feel like you have such beautiful, strong messages in our conversations. Like you're the kind of person I could just talk to for a long time because you have such good insight and you ask really good questions. And it seems like you really listen to people, and you've really expressed your authenticity in the little time that we've known each other. So I think that's really powerful. So
sure. Well, thank you for that.
And I'm trying to encourage Julien to start his own YouTube channel. So comment down below if you guys think that he should start one. And where are you located again, just so everybody knows?
Sure. I'm from London, UK.
London, UK.
So this is actually the first time sort of presenting myself on a video. So I am quite anxious about it, but I'm also excited about the fact that I'm getting out of that comfort zone, exploring what I need to explore. So, but thank you for that. So,
yeah. It's beautiful. And I told Julien, and we got on the phone earlier, and I was like, I feel super anxious today. Like I'm releasing a lot of stuff right now, and I told him that you were awesome because you're like, we can reschedule if you want, it's not a big deal. And I was like, no, I like to get on my platform and show all the different sides. Like even when I'm not feeling my best and I'm feeling like right now, I might have to stop and take some deep breaths as we go through this because there's this pressure, but it wasn't like I felt like I shouldn't record, because if I felt that, I wouldn't. Like I would have told you. I felt like my guides wanted me to come on today, and I felt like it was important to share these messages, and I felt like I wanted to show a different side of me that's not always like, I feel amazing. So
yeah. Exactly. And if I'm honest with you, I feel that is one of the issues with society, is that social media just posts the best version of people just to attract followers and things like that. Whereas your video a couple of days ago, which was authentic, and the fact that you were speaking from an issue that you were currently experiencing. And I think that is the more human side of what we're all experiencing. And I think that if we don't open up more about what we're currently experiencing and how we should deal with it and things like that, then we won't evolve to an extent. So I completely agree with you that it's all about being authentic as possible, and the people that appreciate you will come to you, and the more people that see your authentic side will then feel free to express their own. So
yeah, well said. And I used to have this belief that, I need to heal from this first and then talk about it, right? Like I need to navigate my way. And sometimes that happens in certain situations in my life where I'm like, I need to retreat and go into my own energy and not be on social media. But a lot of the times I'm feeling in that pain and that discomfort, and that is the perfect time to share, because then you're really speaking your experience. You're not just like, oh yeah, this happened to me in the past. You're like, I'm going through it, and people can relate to that. And a lot of people that follow you on social media, right, that connect with you have a similar energetic vibration, and most likely they're going through the same thing.
Sure.
I feel like that's the best way to inspire people, is to get on when you're going through it. And so people are like, oh, I'm not the only one right now. Because we know in the back of our head that, oh, there's probably other people going through a hard time right now. But until we really see it in somebody else, until we really feel it and see it, that really changes the energy and the dynamic of what we're going through. Because, I don't know, for me, it's just been so powerful.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's the thing, is that even though you have sort of a couple thousand followers, in the grand scheme of things that people have millions, we're not quite there. But for you, that's quite a big following, and people would like to see that, although that you're not a celebrity, you have a quite big following, you're putting things out there, that even you still experience these things. And like you say, it's not something that you've just done in the past. It's something that I feel that we'll go through for years to come. It's just an evolution of dealing with the emotions and putting it out there so that people know that we're dealing with this, and that if you'd like to also deal with it, this is potentially how you do it. So yeah, I appreciate what you do, if I'm honest.
Thank you. And thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And it is hard for me still to do that. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, I'm feeling like crap, I'm just gonna get online and talk about it. Like, it's still I still have a lot of resistance. Like, there's always that perception of like, oh well, if I am, giving people advice and life coaching and read their tarot, like, I need to have my stuff together. Like, I need to have it together. Because there's that perception in society, like, well, I have to look like my life is great, especially if I'm promoting my product as myself. I guess you wouldn't say product, but promoting my business. That's me. That's my energy, right? I'm not selling something, like a physical object. I'm selling my services of help. And so
I completely agree with you, and that's what I feel as well. I think I could have probably started this venture a couple of years ago, but I was fearful of the fact that sort of imposter syndrome, like, who am I to potentially give you advice in your life? But ultimately, like we've discussed previously, is that actually when you do have conversations with people, there is quite a bit that I can offer you, and it's not like I'm forcing it upon you, but this is what I experience, and if you resonate with it and if you can take something with it, then perfect. But yeah, that's what I find quite difficult as well, is having that fine balance between the educational side of things so that people believe you're credible, but also actually saying, well, the society side of things is potentially stopping us from evolving because we're spending so much time on learning great things, in my opinion, but just too much time is spent on that, more so than actually dealing with each other on a human basis, more about love and things like that. So I completely agree with you. I do have that fear as well of who am I to an extent to give you advice, but yeah.
I was playing out this scenario in my head like a week ago. Like, if I don't know why this came through, but like, if I was at an event and I was speaking, and if someone came up to me and was like, well, you don't have these credentials, you don't have this degree, or you, like, why should I listen to you? I feel like that's a common question people have, like, why should I listen to? And my answer in my head was like, well, you shouldn't if you don't want to. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, if what I say inspires you and it opens you up and it makes you feel better and it resonates and it helps you on your path and it brings some clarity, then yeah, you should probably listen. But if it doesn't, I'm not going to resonate with everybody. Like, I'm not. My energy is not for everybody. Like, I've realized that. And I'm okay with that more now than I used to be. Because, coming from a people-pleasing kind of energy where I want everyone to like me, I've really started to accept that it's literally impossible for, one person to be liked by the whole world. So, if somebody was to come up to me, I'd be like, well, don't. If you don't want to, I don't care. Like,
sure.
This is my truth. This is who I am. If you don't like it, then go find somebody that does inspire you. And, that helps you. and then let me just do my thing, you know?
Exactly, yeah. And I find that with this is that it's all about sparking something inside of someone. So we can't do the work for them, but I've got from experience and also from knowledge and things like that, that here's what I've experienced. And if it resonates with you, or if it sparks a light in you to maybe think differently or try to do a different change in your life, for example, that's all that's needed. You've still got to go and do the work. But yeah, there's nothing in terms of, so I'm trying to do a part-time degree at the minute to get a sort of qualification to go with it, but learning it doesn't really offer much in my opinion. It's all about how people connect on a soul-to-soul basis. So if what I've said resonates with you and you do something differently, I don't think that requires a specific education to say that. So yeah, that's my feeling.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to build that confidence. Like as you start to build your platform and make a brand for yourself and make a name for yourself and show your authenticity, because when you're truly authentic in your energy, what I've learned is that you're going to trigger people. You're going to trigger people, and those people need those triggers for their growth. And accepting that, you know, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah. And that's the thing is that for me, it doesn't mean that you have to go and get a qualification to prove that you can spark a light in someone. Like you, I think that what we need to do to move forward authentically is to express what we've experienced, and more than likely, like you've said, someone else is experiencing it now or have done in the past. So the more that people actually share the authentic side of things, I think will then move towards the loving side of humanity that we need to go towards, rather than it just being a fake image of who's the wealthiest or who's got the nicest car to an extent.
Yeah. So exactly. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I'm going to ask you, and if you don't feel comfortable asking it, that's totally fine, or answering it. But for you, like, you know, when I go on your Instagram, you don't have any pictures of your face up. You haven't made any videos yet or anything like that. What are some of the fears holding you back? Because I feel like some of the fears that you have, our audience right now is really going to relate to some of those fears. So if you feel comfortable in expressing that,
sure.
I feel like, if not, we can go to the next topic, because I know this is a vulnerable thing that I'm we didn't plan this, but I just felt called to I feel called to put you on the spot, because I think that some of your fears too are going to be the fears that I still kind of deal with and that I've dealt with before I started really showing my face on, you know, social media, on my platform.
Sure. I would say that the biggest problem was the imposter syndrome to an extent, which is that I've just had normal jobs. I've gone through sort of normal life experiences. I don't really have any qualifications to an extent, but I've done a lot of knowledge learning in my own time. So that's the biggest, I think, fear for me is trying to help someone, knowing that to an extent I still got problems myself to deal with, and that's sort of thinking a lot, trying to be the best version of myself, but I'm not quite there. So it's almost like trying to give advice when you're not quite the perfect person yourself, which I think that's the whole barrier that I put up with, stops me from doing things. So that's a big fear for me. Like you say, I don't really have many social media profiles of myself anyway, or images, purely because I think what I would like to do in life is not obtain fame to an extent. I would like, as an introverted type of person, is to take a back seat. So I do view myself as like a leader and a director that can help people, and they go and shine their own light. So I kind of want my business to be about the idea rather than the person. So although I do have fears of presenting myself, and I don't know if this is just an excuse that I come with or not, but I do have this strong feeling in my soul that I don't want to be an idolized figure. If I do ever make it, I want the person to know that this was the idea and that you did the work yourself. So, but yeah, I would say that's the two routes I go down, is the fact that I don't particularly want to show my face. So maybe the reason is that's the route I take, in terms of that I just allow people to do their thing. But
I understand that. I get that.
Yeah. And what fears do you have currently still then? If you still, because you've been doing this for a little while, and your videos, you do come across like you're very confident, you're happy as, and things like that. So
yeah. Well, I think I can credit that to, like, even when I first started making videos, I mean, you can tell I'm not as relaxed as now, but I think I was good at it, even though I wasn't comfortable, because I had been waitressing and bartending for so long that you learn how to put on a fake face and a happy face. And,
Sure.
you know, you learn how to do that. So, you know, I guess part of it was acting, because you know, and not that I wasn't being who I was, it was just that I didn't want to get on every time and be like, I'm freaking out, guys. You know, I didn't want to distract people from the message I was trying to give, you know? Um, but yeah, so recently I don't want to talk too much into this topic because I'm going to make a whole video about this, but the relationship I just got out of it ended up being abusive. And so, you know, since I've been helping people, it's mostly towards women. Like, women are most of the people that watch my content. And so I'm always about empowering women and helping women. And I had this moment where I was like, I didn't even realize I was in a toxic relationship. Like, I didn't see it. And now that I'm in it and I'm coming to terms with it and I'm leaving it, and I'm completely cut off now from him. Like, I completely cut off communication and I'm healing. It was like, it was kind of just like I had to really stay strong in my energy, not to beat myself up about it, and not to say, oh my gosh, you shouldn't have been showing yourself on your platform because you don't know what you're doing. You're still attracting toxic men and you're still doing this. And I could feel that kind of energy start to come up, and I would sit with it a little bit, right? Like, okay, what's coming up right now? And I had to nurture myself a lot and remind myself of all the people that I have helped, and how I'm never going to be in a state where I feel like I'm 100% perfect, you know? And I just need to keep accepting that. Like, even when I do a tarot reading, you know, I accept that it's going to play out like it's going to play out, and that I'm not supposed to get 100% right. There might be things that come up that don't resonate for the person. Like, I'm not supposed to put myself in this, I don't know, I guess boxer. I don't know if that's the right. So that was challenging for me, and it still kind of is. I'm still healing from that relationship and the shock from it, because it ended very suddenly. And then as soon as I saw the toxic traits, all of the memories in the past started to come through that I didn't realize were so toxic and so harming to me. And so, you know, that, I think if anybody goes through that, it can make them question their ability to lead and ability to speak for women, to women, you know, when it's such a traumatizing thing to go through.
No, I hear you, and I think that what is authentic about that is the fact that there will be a lot of women, potentially some of your followers, but a lot of women out there that are still experiencing that. So in order to shed light on the fact that this is still a problem, but it's almost like you say, there is that external problem of that person creating the toxicity, but also the fact that it's still within you and within your inner reality, and that maybe there's something that you need to heal inside to potentially change the situation. So yeah, I completely feel you on the fact that potentially leading someone still experiencing issues causes fear. But I think that that's what makes you a good leader to an extent, because it's the authentic side that people need. They need to hear that they are, like you say, experiencing it as well. So yeah, it's brave of you to mention it, and I'm looking forward to that video. So even though it's not going to be a great subject, but just in terms of how you're dealing with it, how you're healing from it, and things like that. So there'll be positives from it.
Exactly. That's how I feel. Like, I feel that I need to do it for me, just to express it. I know it'll help other women, because some of the, like, I've been in abusive relationships before this, and their abuse was more obvious. This was very subtle. This was very manipulative. This was a whole new level that I didn't know existed. And now I see it, and I've been researching it, and I've been watching all these videos and educating myself that are, you know, made by doctors and psychologists and therapists, and, you know, all these people that have devoted their lives to these topics because they've experienced it, right? And so I've been educating. I've learned so much this past month about things that I didn't see that I wasn't aware of. And so I am so excited about this knowledge that I have now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I'm going to be able to help women in a whole new way. Like,
Yeah.
and ever since this has happened, and I had 3 sessions last week. Oh my gosh, they were so much more powerful than I've ever had with anybody. Like, my intuition was stronger. And it was like you said earlier, when you want to help people, show people that they're the healers, that they have the power, that it's not me. Like, don't idolize me for what I'm doing. It's you that has the power. It was like that was happening. Or I would just say a few words and they were like, oh, I'm figuring it out. And they would say something and they're basically teaching themselves.
Right.
It's like being able to create a safe space for somebody so that they can really fully express. And then they find their inner knowledge. And that is my favorite part of a session. Like, when I just say a few words where I'm like, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. Like, this is just the message that's come. Like, I don't even, does this make sense? And they're like, light bulb, and they just start talking. And I'm like, you got all of that? Like, what? I'm like, that's awesome. And so, yeah, I agree with you when you talked about, it's like what I see as like creating a safe space for somebody, empowering somebody, validating somebody, and shining the light on them to show them that they have this inner knowledge. Because a lot of people, most people, weren't raised in an environment in their household where they were shown that they're this divine being that is connected to this energetic source of all knowledge that, can, do all these amazing things, because their parents didn't know and their parents didn't know. Yeah. And now people are really waking up to that. And we can kind of go into that, to like the 5D that you were talking about earlier, because you asked me some really good questions about 5D and 4D and 3D. So what were those questions again? I don't remember.
Sure. So I just come across this book called The Law of One by Ra. And I think it was back in the 70s and 80s that these group of 3 people sort of channeled this entity, which was of a different consciousness and density to us. So we're currently on the 3rd density, and I think this was a 6th or 7th wave density entity. And it would channel through what we need to experience to progress into the 4th density. So there's this YouTuber called Aaron Abkay, who explains it extremely well. He's got a series about it, and he also talks about this other book called A Course in Miracles. So, but the Law of One pretty much describes that in terms of moving to the next density, we need to become one to an extent. So it's about learning to become lovable beings, because you and I are the same. So it's about the consciousness that we see as 2 is actually 1. But we're different expressions of the same thing, which is love to an extent. But pretty much the first original thought of creation was for love. So we need to, I believe he mentions that Mother Earth is currently on the 4th density, and it takes hundreds of years for the evolution of humans to get to there. So it's not an issue that the Earth is 4D, but we're 3D. But it's just a question of how long will it take us to realize that we are one, and to start showing unconditional love for each other. So yeah, my question to you is that obviously we do experience sort of negative things in life and it triggers us, but I think that that's what we need to progress. What's your view on that? Do you think that potentially someone can be born without these experiences and still experience unconditional love and progress their soul, or do you think that they need to have difficult scenarios in order to experience the suffering so that they know what love and goodness is?
I think experiencing the sufferings is always going to be part of a human experience. I think it is important, and I think we come here to experience those lower vibrational emotions, which to some is like, well, why would we come here to experience pain? Like, why would we? Like, I would never want to experience this for myself or on anybody. But once you start to go into those 4D and 5D consciousness, you start to see that. And I think, I'm getting this message, which is like interesting because I haven't thought about it like this before, but it's like 5D, when you're in that energy, because 4D, this is how I interpret it. And I think there's a lot of different interpretations, but 4D is kind of like feeling in the present moment. It's feeling in the present moment. It's being in the present moment. It's being in the now. And then 5D is, of course, still being in the now, but also like seeing the beauty in everything and fully trusting and surrendering and being in a very peaceful, high vibrational state. Now, I feel like you can still experience sadness in the 5D, and I might be wrong about this, but this is just what's coming through. I feel like you can still experience lower vibrations in the 5D, but you don't experience it like you used to. You feel it, but you see the beauty in the pain. You see that this is a release, this is a human experience, and you sit with it and you let your emotions guide you, and you feel it out, and you talk about it, you express it, and it doesn't sit with you for years and years as a trauma thing that weighs on you. It's like it's experiencing pain in a different way. It's kind of like I explained recently on one, I think it was like a TikTok video, when you level up in your spirituality and you start to, experience something that's really heavy and you cry. And while you're crying, you're like, yes, I'm releasing. Like, this feels good. Like, before in the past, you would do that. You'd be like, why am I crying? I'm so weak. Why am I doing this? But in this new 5D or 4D, you're crying, but you're like, oh, yeah, get it out. Like, this is like, I'm going to feel so good after this. My eyes are going to be droopy, but I don't care. You just release it, and that's, to me, 5D. I don't know if that's right, but I feel like pain, it sucks. It sucks. But there is beauty in it. And I can see that now. And I've gone through a lot of pain. I've gone through a lot of physical pain. I've gone through depression. I've gone through anxiety. And I still experience those things from time to time. But it's kind of the way that we welcome it and accept it and let it teach us and integrate it and sit with it for the period of time we need to learn that lesson. Because ultimately, when we experience that pain, it does bring more compassion into our lives. It strengthens our empathy towards others, and it helps us connect to people, right? Because if we weren't going through those kind of experiences, I feel like it would be harder to connect with people on such a deep soul level.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. Yeah. And I'm not too sure what the description of 5D is, but it sounds quite similar, to be fair with you. And I think the same is with any range of emotions. So, for example, crying and being angry and that sort of thing, it is frowned upon to an extent in our societies. That's not really what you should be doing. But then when I have experienced a good old cry, you do feel so much better after. So, without having that experience of crying, which is a negative, you wouldn't experience a positive, which is that amazing feeling after. I agree with you. Yeah,
to take the highs with the lows. From what I heard, from some of the books I've read, this one book, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a lot of these hypnotherapists that do like regression sessions, and they do like, you can figure out what you were in your past life. I had one of them done before, but there's this other guy who does them, and he investigates what the afterlife is like. So he lets people live in their life, die, and then he's like, okay, now tell me what's going on. And he has all these different people that explain what happens when you die, right? And they're all a little bit different, but they're all pretty much the same. And the way they describe it, and the energy, and the system that's in place, and it really resonates true to me. And it's interesting the way they talk about it. And I know Dolores Canyon has talked about it a little bit too. She's big in this, but this is a different guy. So there's a lot of hypnotherapists that talk about this, that have all had like research that all meshes very well together. And so they talk about how, in this afterlife, we don't have those lower vibrational energies. We don't experience sadness. We don't experience physical pain. We don't have a physical body. We don't experience anger. It's all just like joy and love and light. And we understand how we're all connected, because everything's energy up there, and everybody just, plays their part. And there's different levels that people are at. And they basically like go to school and they learn. And the reason people come to Earth or other planets is to study that culture and to help the planet and to experience being a human. Just to experience it, just to see, because like you can learn in school about like what sadness is. Okay, water comes from people's eyes and they don't feel well, but like you don't really know what sadness is until you feel it.
Yeah.
So I think knowing that's powerful, because it's like, oh, we come here to like experience crying and experience hate and experience guilt and experience, chronic pain.
Sure.
And it makes that transition to like accepting it and honoring it, but also learning we learn how to heal it. Like, I feel like my purpose on this earth was, yeah, sure, part of it is to come and help the planet and all of that. But really, it's about my experience, and it's about learning how to heal chronic pain, how to transmute anxiety and depression into a healing process, and learn how to do that in a physical body.
Yeah, that's the same with me. And that's what I've suppressed for a number of years, was people pleasing to an extent, but putting others above myself. So yeah, but now I'm realizing over the last year or so that actually I've got a journey of my own as well, like you. So a part of that journey is to help others, but also it's a part that I've got things I need to deal with as well, and experience and that sort of thing. And I don't think that that is the selfish aspects of what we define as selfish. I think that if everyone did the inner work, obviously there would be peace and harmony to an extent, because they'd all be dealing with the emotions and the negativity that's within them. So yeah, I don't feel guilty anymore of doing that to an extent, and it's not putting other people out so that they experience negativity from it. I still give them what they need to an extent, but I realize that I'm clawing back time and energy for myself to go on that healing journey. So yeah, I feel you on that. I do.
Yeah, you have to put yourself first. And that does feel selfish, because we've talked about this before, we both grew up being people pleasers, where we want to make everybody feel comfortable. And we want, we feel like we'll be happy if other people around us are happy. Yeah. And because that was kind of the environment we were raised in. And then we grow older and we're like drained all the time. And we're like, oh, I need to put myself first. And then we feel like we're being selfish. And, and I think with that, we can talk about the boundaries, because for me, there's so many different levels of boundaries, right? I mean, for me, a couple months ago, if somebody asked me what boundaries are, I'd be like, oh, well, if somebody asked me to hang out and I'm tired, I say no. Like, I've gotten good at that. In the past, I would have been like, I'll do whatever you want. I'll drink a cup of coffee. Like, I'll be over. I've gotten good at saying no to people when they demand my time and energy. Or even like when I worked a job, I worked waitressing, and they call me in, for a shift, and I didn't have anything planned, but I knew energetically that I needed to take the day off. I would just be like, no, like, I can't come in. And I would feel conflicted inside, like, oh gosh, I'm a bad person,
Yeah.
And, but I learned over time, but then there's been this whole new level of boundaries that I've learned of, like, speaking up for yourself. So if somebody makes fun of you, somebody makes a joke and it makes you upset and you cry and you ask them kindly, I just don't want you to make jokes like that anymore. That's setting a boundary. And that's really powerful. It's just like, when it comes to your emotions, if people are saying, oh, you're being too emotional, or I was just kidding, or, get over it. Like, I'm just, this is just my humor. Like, your emotions are telling you what's right and wrong. And to ask somebody, say, hey, and most people that are respectful and loving and kind will respect that boundary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I read this quote that the only people that get annoyed with you setting boundaries is the people that have been taken advantage of them. Because if people were actually had in their own boundaries and appreciate you as a human being, that you need your own boundaries, there will be nothing but love and acceptance there, that's what you need, and that's fine. So yeah, absolutely. It has been tough for me as well to set boundaries, and I think I'm still going through that process. But it is liberating, I have to admit, to actually stand up for myself for once, because I do stand up for a lot of people, but it's actually so fulfilling to actually say, no, actually, this is what I need. And I know that that's what I need, rather than it being a superficial thought that potentially that's what I need. Actually, no, this is what I do need. So, yeah, it's nice to do, but not at the expense of others. It's just knowing that actually this would be better for both of us if I do set this boundary. So,
yeah. And the thing is that, you're saying that it is a good thing, but if most of your life, like me and you, right, how we haven't set proper boundaries, most likely we're going to have, not everybody in our life, but there's going to be some people in our life that aren't going to respect the boundaries when we set them up. So our worst fears of what people are going to say or do might actually happen. Like, the way that they respond in a negative way, the reason we haven't set boundaries is because we're afraid to hurt people, or we're afraid to, like, cause confrontation or make things, weird or whatever thoughts are going in our mind. Those, when you start to set boundaries, I've realized some people aren't going to like that. And the beautiful thing about that is, even though it's hard because you have to distance yourself or completely cut off that person if they can't respect you, the beautiful thing is true colors start to show in people and connections. And if people aren't being the supportive connections that you want, you can start to release that connection and bring in supporting connections with people that do respect your boundaries and that want to lift you up and that, you know, bring a whole new energy into your life, into your community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that that's the thing, is that there's certain people around me that I feel haven't changed in 10, 20 years. But I've evolved to an extent. And I think that if I was to present a boundary, they have this perceived image of who I should be. And that's not who you are. You've never done that before. But I constantly like to evolve and grow and experience new things. I think that, there's that fine line between actually setting a boundary and not losing that person, but then realizing actually I don't need that person to an extent, because I'm opening up to the people that do respect the boundary that I want. So you're absolutely right. It's about closing the doors for those people and opening them for others to come in.
And I think too, also how you communicate those boundaries, you can say, hey, I realized recently, to whatever person you're trying to set the boundary, right? You can even say, hey, I'm not used to setting boundaries, and I realize this is something I need to strengthen in my life. So can I practice setting a boundary with you? See what they say. Most likely they'll be like, yeah, go for it. Like, they'll probably be like, what's going on? What are you talking about? And then say it and kind of prepare them for like, hey, I'm changing. You know, this is what's going on. Like, I need you to be ready. Kind of like get them ready so they're not caught off guard with like, what's happening.
Sure. No, I agree with you. And that's the thing. That's what I do find difficult, though, is presenting that in a way that doesn't offend someone, because people around me do take offense to that. But it's about making them realize that it's not about them. It's actually about me wanting to set this boundary. So you're right. Just inch them in. Just say, okay, I'm in a week's.
Yeah. Oh, your sound cut off. Oh, it's back. Yeah. It cut off for a second. I don't know what happened. Okay. But yeah, I haven't tried that technique yet, but I've just seen how, when I first started setting more boundaries a couple weeks ago, how that might have really changed how the interaction played out. Because I think the people that don't respond well to boundaries usually have a lot of insecurities.
Yeah.
So like, that's exactly what you said. Like, a lot of people are going to be triggered by that boundary because they're going to think that it's all about them and that they failed, and it's going to bring up all this trauma.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And that's the shame of it, that I think that if they were also doing the inner work, they potentially would understand that. But obviously we're all on different journeys and we're all at different stages of it. So you've got to appreciate where they're at. And if they're not ready to potentially go down that route, then that's fine. But that shouldn't stop me from setting a boundary and moving forward on my journey.
Yeah. And adding on to that, just one more thing about boundaries. I feel like it's never going to feel easy to set them if you're not used to setting them. So just be aware of that. I feel like being aware of that for me is like, okay, I'm never going to feel completely ready or comfortable. It's one of those things you just have to start doing. And then over time, it gets easier.
And do you have any boundaries that you're quite fearful of setting moving forward? Is there some that you would like to do but haven't quite done, or?
No, I feel like there's a possibility that there's boundaries I need to set in certain areas of my life that I'm not aware of yet. And I'm open to that. But the new boundaries I've learned, I'm actually really excited to practice them.
Cool.
That's like a 5D thing, I think. Like, I'm like, bring it on. Who wants to overstep a boundary? Like, I want to practice this. Like, I want to integrate it. And I know if someone comes in my life and they overstep, I'm like, ooh, that's my opportunity to practice.
Yeah.
And I think I started learning that actually from, we were talking earlier about Phil Good Life. I've been posting a lot of his videos on my Instagram because he's been resonating, and he's one of the first people that taught me that. That was one of the first things on my spiritual journey he talked about was how to look at these triggers, or these, when people come into our space, whether they're like, you know, overstepping a boundary, or if they're being rude to us, or if, something happens with an interaction with somebody else, right, that's negative, deemed negative or low vibration, to look at that as like, you're in school on Earth and you just got a pop quiz. Like, what you gonna do? You wear your tools, use your knowledge, use your awareness. Like, how can you, and if you pass this test, if you don't let that person bring you down to their level, then you're integrating more light into your body, and you are actually like growing on such a huge level, and you're stepping into this power that you have. Yeah. You're not letting someone take you down to their low vibration. You're like, no, I'm staying up here, and I'm gonna prove it to you because I got the tools, I have the awareness, and it's like, it feels good.
Definitely, it absolutely does, and it shows as an example that you have progressed. That you aren't just continually doing the same things to an extent. So yeah, without that awareness, you wouldn't know that you'd done that previously. So I do think that's a key thing, is to be aware of what your habits are in terms of how you respond and how you think in those situations, because that's something that I've realized is that there's a default mode that I go in if someone approaches me in a certain way. So yeah, realizing actually I do have a choice here. I don't have to continually keep doing that. I can address it in a different way now. I can say something different. I can potentially just offer silence. I could just move away, do things like that. So yeah, I agree that it's so liberating knowing that you have the choice. You don't have to keep doing the same things and dealing with the same people.
Yeah. And that's where, yeah, exactly. I love that you said that. And that's where awareness comes into play too, because, I encourage my clients, if they're dealing with somebody in their life that triggers them a lot, like, how can you respond in a different way? Take a minute, don't react, respond, right? Sometimes we're so quick to react because we want to defend ourselves and we want to defend our opinion, and we want to so we're just used to using the same energy and the same habits as always. So take a minute. If someone triggers you, take a breath. Even if they're looking at you, like waiting for you to respond, just be like, I need a minute, take a breath, and be like, okay, how can I respond differently? Even if it's not like dramatically differently, how can I just use my words differently? Or how can I challenge myself to change the energy of this conversation so it doesn't go in the same way it always goes to get the same result I've always gotten?
Yeah.
And
even just taking a pause for half a second or a second, that's different to what you did previously. So bit by bit, even if it takes that you still respond in a certain way, but you had that awareness for a second to maybe present something new. Even that's a change, and that's growth. So yeah, completely feel you on that. Yeah. And it was, I read Eckhart mention somewhere in one of his speeches that that you have a viewpoint and they have a viewpoint, but if you're attached to that viewpoint and get offended by it, that's insanity, because it's just a viewpoint. It's not who you are. So even if someone doesn't appreciate your boundary to an extent, that's just an ideology that they have. It's not against you, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's to me like 5D awareness. It's taking a step back. It's looking at the bigger picture and going, okay, there's more to it than just what's going on in my head and my thoughts and my beliefs. And, not that those aren't valid or important, but there's a bigger picture to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. And that's just a small moment that's happened in your life. And you can move from it. You can decide what went wrong, what went right, and then the next time it comes up, do something different. But without being aware of what that effect had on you, you're just not going to change. So that negativity to an extent triggers you to maybe make the choice differently next time.
Yeah, and I think you can apply that same energy to the other topic we wanted to talk about, which was feeling emotions, trusting them, and then what to do, because it's about reacting differently, like not changing our emotions, but how we handle the emotions, right? So when we wake up and feel anxious, like today I felt anxious, right? And instead of like in the past, I would be like annoyed because I'm like, I don't want to feel like this. I can't breathe right. And I feel antsy. And when I'm anxious, I can't think very clearly. And even as we're talking, I've had moments where I had a hard time paying attention to you just because of the anxiety I'm still experiencing. And I'm like, oof, okay.
Sure.
I mean, it's just what happens, right? And I didn't think about that before we made the video, that would be something that would get in the way, or I shouldn't say get in the way, but be a challenge for me. So as I experienced this anxiety in the past, I would have been like, okay, go away. I don't want to feel this. How can I distract myself? How can I, and now it's like, okay, what's going on, Megan? Like, are you okay? Is something coming up? So I meditated and I realized that I'm starting to see my childhood in a different way. And I was like, okay, I get this is heavy. This is a lot. And I'm going to let myself feel this. And this feels like sometimes I can feel in it and cry and release it all within an hour or two if I really give myself a safe space. But sometimes for bigger things, it can take a couple days and longer, sometimes weeks. It just depends on honoring your body's ability to heal and release and reflect on whatever's coming through, because that anxiety is a message from my body. If we're experiencing depression, if we're experiencing sadness or frustration or anger, our body's communicating to us. So how can you sit with it, trust it? And I feel like the best thing for me to do is just sit with it. Like I use this analogy where I pretend that I'm sitting next to the 3-year-old Megan. She's right next to me, and she's the one feeling this. She's the one feeling sad and frustrated, and I'm this higher self, right? This is how I'm a visual person, so this is how I do my therapy, right? Or you can pick any age, but usually it's like a little tiny Megan, little cute Megan. And she's sitting next to me, and I'm like, okay, tell me what's going on. Like, I love you. I'm validate your experience. I know you're not feeling well, and that's completely okay. And like, tell me what this is. And I just wait and I sit with it, and I put my hands on my heart, and I just talk to myself, and I nurture myself like I would want someone to nurture me. And when you do that, you create that space, which is so important, and you validate those feelings. People open up. I notice that in my sessions with clients. If I validate people and I create a safe space, they completely open up. We have to do that with ourselves. And once you can do that, you can fully and then you have to have no judgment. So when the little version of you starts to say, well, I'm scared because I don't know what's next in life, or I'm scared about my career and I'm scared I'm not making enough money, you can't judge it and be like, oh no, we're not doing that again.
Yeah.
Shut up, little Megan. We've already worried about money. We've moved past our money blockages, and no, that can't be it. You have to have no judgment. You have to let yourself express yourself as a little child, because we all have this inner child. Once you do that, you can really, really heal, and it's a beautiful process. And it always just transforms the energy that I'm feeling, because I used to just suppress and be like, no, Megan, I'm not going to feel like that. Why is this happening to me? Instead, now I'm like, what is this teaching me?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, is you'll keep getting triggered until you actually deal with it. And like you say, the only real way to deal with it is to accept that it's happening, see what you can do about it with no judgments, and release it to an extent. And that's what I've experienced, is that scenarios have happened again once I've released an emotion, and I haven't been triggered by it. I've just sort of passed by it. But in the past, that would have triggered me, and it will keep triggering me until I deal with it. So you're absolutely right that the only way you can deal with it is without judgments and acceptance and unconditional love. Like you say, just listen to what's going on inside of you and deal with it.
Is that kind of your process? Like, how do you describe your process and what you do? Because I feel like everyone's process is kind of different.
Sure. That's the thing, is that I've suppressed a lot of stuff, even things that I know I shouldn't suppress. I sometimes feel like I just don't want to deal with it. So yeah, my process would be that if I do get triggered, I do this thing where it's relax and release. So I do the in breath with relax, and then the out breath release it. So I'm sort of aware of the fact that I'm experiencing it, whether it's the emotion or a thought, and just sit with it. So I try and open my heart and just let it pass through. So yeah, like you say, that sometimes can be an hour that I could quickly go through something. But if it's something that I've suppressed for so long that it does take a while. And there'll be moments where I don't really want to sit there and relax and release it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I've learned. My main thing about this is all about sort of being present. So it's about not being controlled by the mind all the time and the thoughts and going down that journey of it. So I like to try and stop my thoughts going down that journey, and then that's when I can then relax and release and potentially get rid of it. But sometimes I just go down the thought journey and experience that as well. So yeah, I still have released a lot, I have to admit, but there's still a lot that potentially I've got to deal with in the future. So
your intuition is like aware.
Yeah, but like you say, I feel like really free from doing all of the work that I've done, and I have been hermit mode, as I said to you, for a good 3 or 4 years, just dealing with things. And I would never have done this sort of thing then. I was just so shy, but I was shy for the fact that I didn't realise my own worth to an extent, because I put everyone else first and not realising that I do have a lot of light to shine. So yeah, all that healing sort of led me here, and hopefully with a little bit more healing, I'll do a little bit more. So but yeah, that's my thing: relax and release, and just allow it to be.
So how are you feeling now that we've been filming for like 50 minutes? What's your energy like? I want to know what's going on. Like, are you nervous?
Sure.
Do you feel like you're kind of in a flow state, or are you just like, when is this going to end?
No, not at all. I do feel like I'm in a flow state because I'm aware now. So this is the state I like to try and get into. And I think doing these sort of things helps me actually get there. So I'm afraid of these scenarios, but actually they work out in my favour. So at the minute, I'm completely aware of my breath. So my stomach going in and out. And no, I'm not on the mental plane. So I'm not thinking at the minute. I'm just, like Eckhart sort of mentions, that there's an intelligence that you access in the present moment that knows far more to an extent than your mind, but it uses your mind. So no, I'm not fearful at the minute, to be fair. I will be once we finish and it's up on the internet and that sort of thing. I'll be just panicking.
I get that. Well, I was gonna say, because I wanted to let you know that you don't seem nervous. Like, you seem like you're presenting yourself really confident, and you seem like good. So I just wanted to let you know, in case you were wondering what your perception was, or what my perception was.
Well, to be honest with you, like you, in the past, I have worn many masks. I've been quite experienced in terms of dealing with high-end people and other people and that sort of thing. So I've accustomed myself, because of my introverted nature, to put on a quick mask to deal with the situation. But in this instance, I do actually feel quite genuine with it all. There's no me trying to act confident. I actually feel just present and enjoying the moment. So yeah, thank you though, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And another thing I wanted to add on, since we're talking a lot about authenticity, is I feel like we're coming into this age. A lot of astrologers call it like the age of Aquarius, which is like this, I feel like it's the age of vulnerability and authenticity. And I feel like it's embracing more of that feminine energy, because the masculine energy is great and it's important and it's good, but there is an offset, there's an off balance of that in the world right now, because society promotes people that are doers and goers, and the masculine energy is taking action, right? It's that physical reality of going after your goals in a very physical way. It's like,
sure.
You know what I mean? And the feminine energy is about sitting still and taking time to go within and nurturing yourself and being that mother, and meditation, right? That's the feminine energy, being in the moment. And I feel like 2020 was kind of like that push to get in that feminine energy for a lot of people, because they were forced to slow down. And I feel like in 2021, people are starting to really accept this feminine energy more. There's still resistance to it, but there is acceptance to this intuitive energy that we have, this free flow energy of being in the moment, nurturing ourselves and healing ourselves. Like, and it's so powerful. And I've integrated, I was always in the masculine energy, like way too much, of working way too many hours, and not spending enough time with myself, and feeling like I needed certain people in my life to make me happy. And now being in the feminine energy, I'm like, wow, this is powerful. Like, I really understand it now more than ever, especially last year. And I'm excited for more people to wake up to this power, this inner power, this feminine, intuitive energy of stillness, the power in stillness.
Sure, I agree with you. And that's the thing, is that that's something that really resonates with me, and that's something I've been working on, and it's something that I would like to share. But I just think that the people that are currently like Eckhart Tolle, who I do keep mentioning, the way that they have taught and the experience they have, I just think that instead of me giving you that guidance, I just think, well, actually go and check him out to an extent. But yeah, I do agree with you that last year was a brilliant cut in the cord in terms of everyone just keep continually working day in, day out. And I think that there's been a lot of downtime where people have been forced to go inwards to an extent, and then they can start realizing that maybe I need to move here, or maybe need to do this differently with my family, or maybe I would like kids, blah, 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 that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that that was the catalyst last year for us to move towards the new age. And yeah, I think there are the deaths and bits and pieces, very, very distraught to an extent with all that. But I think that it has been needed. I think that we needed this sort of break, and it had to come from a global scale because it had to affect as many people as possible in the same time frame. So yeah, I personally think it's been quite positive with the next 10, 20, 30 years of us moving towards that age. So yeah, I'm looking forward to people going on that journey, and I think that they are the only ones that can do it. And I think that without that break, they wouldn't have done it. They would just continue to work and to try and achieve goals and things like that. So but I have to admit, it's been great to see a lot of people on Instagram, and I even watched that Down to Earth on Netflix with Zac Efron. I'm not too sure if you've seen that.
Oh yes, I have. I've seen some of them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was beautiful, if I'm honest with you, and that's what I think the world needs more of, is the fact that there's so many good things out in the earth, and the media, especially in the UK, portrays such a negative, horrible image day in, day out. And I think that for us to start recognizing that there's more to us and more to our communities, and that there is genuine sustainability, there's genuine love out there, there's genuine communities that are there for each other. And I think that Netflix is something that people watch a lot, and I think that you do need to infiltrate those sort of systems to an extent, because people do watch a lot of TV. But that was absolutely beautiful to see that type of positivity being shown, and I think that we do need more of that. But for that to spark something in someone, and even if they don't immediately change, at least they can begin to have different thoughts of potentially what life is like, which is just not the continual effort of trying to achieve goals for the sake of one's own self-image. So
yeah, that's why we need more leaders and more people starting YouTube channels.
Absolutely. Well, that is something after putting everything together. So like, I do want to help people go on that journey. I think that's definitely part of what I'd like to do. I want to incorporate sort of veganism to an extent. I think that the sustainability side of it, in terms of changing how we cultivate the land and what we eat and put in our body, does have a major impact on how we feel and that sort of extent. So I want to incorporate the healthy side of it. But ultimately, I was thinking that it would be nice to have a system where you can create leaders that go on to do their own thing, so that they do have the education, because I think that that's what lacks here in the UK especially, is that the educational side of this positivity, the esoteric style of what we learn and do and that sort of thing is pushed aside. But I think that if people were educated to potentially knowing what Eckhart knows and the potential that we have as a human being, so for me, I just think that we're a soul having the human experience to either progress or to learn new things. So the educational side of it does need to change, but I do feel that we'll get there, definitely. So my point would be that I'd like to create leaders to an extent that have the same sort of education that I have, but then they can go and do their own thing. So they can create the sustainable projects, create love and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's beautiful. I love that. I love that.
thank you. Yeah,
That's important. That's important because I always say too, like there's, with the growth of spirituality, there are going to be leaders that are more about themselves and a little more, I don't know the word, selfish or self-centered.
yeah,
And it's like, if you're not sure about a spiritual leader or somebody online, look to see how they make you feel. If they're empowering you and teaching you how to strengthen your energy and how to become a leader or become their own leader, right? Like
yeah,
their own parent, that's the kind of people that you should be following, in my opinion. If someone's like, oh, you need to buy this candle that I sell because it's going to clear the negative energy out of your life, and you need this from me, and you need this, and you need to watch this video, you have to buy this course, like
yeah,
question that. Because if someone's saying I know all the answers, then like they don't know they don't get it.
yeah. That
Nobody
misses the
knows all
point.
the like they should
Yeah,
be telling you that you have the answers, like.
sure.
And I
Yeah,
think it's just important as the spiritual community grows to have that discernment and follow your intuition, because you don't want to go down the path of giving your power away to somebody else and then getting stuck in an abusive culture. I mean, this could happen in relationships too, but abusive work environments. It's using your discernment.
yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, is that these leaders at the minute are pop stars to an extent. That those are celebrities that have the largest following, and for me, they don't advertise the correct things. And that's what I appreciate about Zach going on that journey, is that it's opening up to his audience a different side of it. And that's what I feel that needs to happen more, is that you spark an idea in someone, but they need to go and explore it for themselves. So yeah, I do agree that the spiritual community does need more openness to an extent. But then again, this is what I find is so difficult in our society, that obviously everyone needs money to live and experience new things. So there's that fine balance. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that there's a lot of people sort of selling crystals and bits and pieces, and I appreciate you've got to make your money and things like that. But yeah, I just think that we could potentially do things for free more often than not and just help people out. But then there's also that question of getting money yourself. So
that's a whole nother video. We could
yeah.
money blockages and
Sure.
Well, perfect. Well, I think we should wrap it up because it's been about an hour. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about. I know we didn't hit every single topic that we wanted to, but I figured that we would just go with the flow, and I wasn't like too concerned with it. But is there anything else you want to mention, or?
Not particularly. I'd just like to thank you for doing what you're doing. Yeah, you've shared some good things that sort of helped me. But I do particularly like your videos where you talk to the camera to an extent. So the tarot is fantastic, but I found the most joy just listening to some of your stories. So yeah, for you, I think you need to definitely continue doing what you're doing. I'm sure you will. But no, it's just thank you for having me. To be fair, it's been great chatting to you, and yeah, well, the first video.
Yeah, and everybody, I'm so glad that you came on. You have such beautiful energy, and I'm excited to connect with you more in the future. And for everybody watching, if you want clarity on any of the topics that we discussed, just comment them down below. We're open to hearing positive, negative feedback, whatever you want to share. Just be your true, authentic self. Do it with respect, and we would love to just connect with you all that way. And yeah, let us know if you want Julien to start a channel, or if you want to. I'll put his links down below in the description box for his IG and stuff like that, so you can follow him there. And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
And hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, hit that subscribe button. Okay, bye.
See ya.